So last summer, my fiance and I were overwhelmed. We had just bought our first house, and on top of the endless landscaping work and housework, we were planning a wedding, and it was COVID. It was a lot. And we both needed just a break. We needed a chance to, more than anything, just reconnect with one another. And so we called we have a family friend who's 18, and we were like, hey, can you watch our house for this weekend? And he had never watched the house, so he was like, yes. And Jordan's mom, Gigi, and her brother, Lance, thought it would be a cool thing for the four of us to go float down a really beautiful stretch of the Colorado River right near the town of Moab, Utah. And Lance, who is Jordan's brother, he often assumes the role of captain on our adventures because he has all the gear and he looks great in Ray-Bans. He was like, yeah, it's a really lazy stretch of river, and between the two stand-up paddle boards I have and the two tubes I have, we can switch off and just have like a beautiful, relaxing day, and it's amazing. And I was like, wow, I love the words beautiful, relaxing, stretch. And so we set off, and we get to this campsite, and it's gorgeous. It was these sort of red rock formations, and we were steps from the river, and these, like there were like raptors and vultures flying over. It was just amazing. And the next morning, Lance and I drive one car 9 miles down to drop off at the exit launch, and then we drive back, and Lance and Gigi get on the stand-up paddle boards, and my fiance Jordan and I plop into our tubes, and Lance set us up with like a carabiner to connect the two tubes and one kayak paddle, just like in case, he's like Captain Lance. He thinks of everything. And so we start our float, and in what felt like 20 seconds, Lance and Gigi are so far ahead of us that you can barely perceive them. And Jordan and I look at each other like, whoa, like maybe they caught the current that we haven't caught yet. And what ensued was 9 hours of the laziest river I've ever been on. One might have even said it was asleep. The sun was relentless. There was no respite. I was like so paranoid because I was like, I have to reapply. Like the vultures became more and more ominous. We're sitting there like just a snail going down a river. And so I decide to paddle. I'm like, I'm going to use this paddle. But with like the figure 8 shape that our carabiner creates these two tubes, every time I paddle, we just kind of swerve. It's like the least aerodynamic boat in the world. But we persevere. We're like, it's only 9 miles. Like we've hiked 9 miles in an afternoon, but these are river miles. And so maybe 7 miles in, the weather changes kind of abruptly. Clouds come in, and I'm like, oh my God, thank God. And then there's a slight breeze, and Jordan's like, oh my God. She takes off her swimsuit cover-up, which is this little skirt-like shape, and we hoist it up with two of our arms, and we create maybe the world's worst sail. Like if we were entered like a middle school sail-making competition, we would have to explain to our parents why we didn't even take home a participation trophy. But it worked. It like gave us a little thrust, and we steered towards the narrow side of a fork in the river. And you could see the faintest ripple of a current in that side, and I was like, this is our time to fly. So we go in this side, and we sort of brush up against the side of the river and some sticks. Like we can't really steer. Let's be honest, we're on tubes. Some sticks brush up against Jordan's shoulder, and then we get back in. We converge with the other side of the river, and we're going a little bit faster now. And Jordan looks down, and she's like, there's a spider on me. And she like flicks this spider off, and then I'm like, there's another spider on you. And she flicks another spot, and she looks down, and she just goes, they're all over me! And she like aborts tube, like detubes right away. And it's full yard sale, like water bottle, swimsuit cover up, like hat, glasses. We're swimming around trying to find everything while swimming back to this tube. And then we finally get on, and we're like, okay, it can't be that longer. Like so she's like, I'm gonna like sort of hunch over the back of the back tube, and then you paddle on the front tube. And we created like the world's worst crew team. Like literally, if we were in the Olympics, we would be the human interest story at the end of the Olympics. Like, it's amazing they're even here. This is the spirit of the Olympics, They're representing a country with no rivers or no boats whatsoever. Back to you, Scott Hamilton. But we make it, and we like sort of chug along. And then Jordan's mom and brother, Lance and Gigi, are like sitting on the exit boat launch. They had already stowed their paddle boards and like whipped out the canned wine. They were like sitting and golf clapping as we like arrived. We're just sun scorched and battered and like angry and covered in spiders. And they're like, wasn't that fun? And then we pack all our stuff in this car and we drive back to the campsite, the 9 miles, in just under 10 minutes. Just put a lot of things in perspective. And then we decided to go into the town of Moab for dinner because we're like, we earned it. We need burritos and margaritas. And so right as we start to get cell phone service, we start getting these cryptic, vague texts from Elijah, who is watching our house. And one of them is like, everything's okay. The dogs are fine. I might have gotten hurt. And we don't know what this means. And then Jordan gets a text from our neighbor that's like, what's going on at your house? And this neighbor never texts us. And so then we go full-blown spider panic. We're like back in just full panic. Like, what's going on? We're calming each other down. We're like, it's probably fine. It's probably not a fire. It's probably not like a backyard dog fight that he's fighting our own dogs. And then we finally get into town of Moab, and I get service, and I get Elijah on the phone. He's a little woozy because he's in urgent care right now. And he's like, and apparently he had forgotten his key at his parents' house across town. And rather than drive back, I think he was having friends over, and rather than drive back to his house to get it and drive back to our house, he checked all the windows and then went to our neighbor's house and asked if she had a key to our house. And I'm sure he wasn't like, hi, I'm Elijah. I'm a family friend of Nick and Jordan. I'm watching their house this weekend. I forgot my key. I'm sure he just walked up to the door and was like, do you have a key to that house? And then he decides, I'm going to get in through the egress window. So he goes down into he lifts up the steel gate, goes down into our egress, drops the steel gate on his head, and has to get 8 staples in his head. But he assured us, the dogs are okay. My friends are there. And we slept well that night. And it really did something for it. It allowed us to realize that, like, together, we can get through anything. Please welcome Alyssa, your first storyteller of the night.